Objection!
Madame Tuspels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at a gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time he was sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in. Oui, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at a stated time. Impossible. Order, Consus, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barley Prison where the execution took place. By heck, extraordinary! My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night without question. He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no... Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at a gallows? Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? I'm not suggesting anything, I don't even know. It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. Deba? Wait, what? I'm not following. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night. What? Evidence? This is going too far. Kosu, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night of the professor's execution. What? 10-year-old article. Did we read this? Mr. Drebber's dreadful encounter. Asman drew this, right? Huh? Asman and Drebber. On condition that both contracting parties are alive. What evidence do I have from 10 years ago? The camera. But this is not Mr. Drebber's camera. What? What am I even saying? It would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and one other person of interest. Like Drebber? Asman? Explain exactly what I'm suggesting. What the... I mean, the professor died, that's for certain. But not at the gallows, but after midnight, right? So assuming... assuming Toast Bells went to work like at around 6 a.m. It means the professor died at 3 a.m. or something. Around 3 a.m. No, even later than 3 a.m. So in the middle of the night, basically. The middle of the night. He was killed. So when did this happen? When did Drebber encounter the scene? In the dead of night? Probably before Madame Tuspels went to work. So the professor must have died when Drebber discovered him. What about a gunshot? Should I present this one?
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now? No, he was alive back then. Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Don't be a fool, that's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? Am I serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word, yes indeed.
Mais oui, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness, the story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up.
In any case, this was 10 years ago now, there would surely be no hope of finding...
What are you talking about? It's Drebber!
Objection!
What? On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What? Wait, you don't know?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes. Wait, what?
You will substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago?
Is this a trick question? This is Drebber! Is this a trick question? Are you blind, everyone?
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber?
The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tuspel's museum at Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order! Surely not, Counsel.
Trevor was there in Lowgate Cemetery. What is all this talk about, Mr. Trevor? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame Tuspels doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No. But that would mean... Madame Tuspels. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber. Yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past. What? Oh my.
Good gracious.
Why is everyone shocked? What? Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in a cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. Oh, okay. That is apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. The Daily Circus? That's not a good name for a newspaper. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Oh goodness me, yeah, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable. When I read the article, I want to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of the night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see, so you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt the waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork, and since that time it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. So, 10 years ago, a young man appeared to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would a man do such a thing? He's not even objecting to my account of things. He should be saying, no, it hasn't been proven yet that the waxwork figure was the body double. Which brings us to 3 days ago when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor, is that what you're saying? Huh? What? Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Okay. My lord. This court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart. The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. Uh-oh, Lord Strongheart won't be happy about this.
But Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together. Holy crap. He's almost very scary like this.
Order! Well, very well, I will uphold your request. Billeth, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zieks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. No comment. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer, known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? No comment. If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Seid's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court, tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who saw it? You can see the resemblance clearly, can you? With the man in Madame Taspers, I mean.
Surely he's not going to claim that's what he really saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student at the University of London, was he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me. What an interesting twist. Huh? When at the time not one person would take me seriously? Yet now here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in the court of law too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank, I tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony please about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Oh, I love this music. I love his theme and also to Spell's theme. Yes, of course, as you wish. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say? Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Wait, what? Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute, you're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you'd have to have a screws loose if you believe the corpse could come back from the dead. But, so you think this article is not what the paper is printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes. If the details in that article aren't true, it nullifies your argument. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument? To protect Dr. Scythe? And himself, I guess.
Tell me, witness, you claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Berkeley Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So you were one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed.
At once, my lord. Wait, was Asman the journalist? The reporter? Really? A spot of moonlighting, what does that even mean?
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Actually, you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge my answer to that.
The lantern and spade.
But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Any major hospital? A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. But we made surreptitious arrangements with the hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. That was all for the furtherness of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard that night, spade in hand.
You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences.
What? The death penalty? No way. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research.
Professor Hairbrain said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected to end the way it did, that I regret to this day. You say it was based on what you witnessed, and then you say it was never actually the professor.
Hold it!
What are you talking about? I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So it was renowned among our students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of the condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
But you said you actually saw it.
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night?
I don't know. Is there any material evidence that I could show he really did see the professor?
If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo,
I know, I need to present it. Against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his.
The point is that night was a pivotal moment in my life.
Why did you
gave up on becoming a scientist.
Hold it!
You could still have been a scientist. This article, you mean, published in a daily circus? Yes, somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article and carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. Oh. What? He knew you were grave robbing? The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea. You were also like robbing graves. Well, not robbing, but opening them. And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. You combined your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. And you used those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Hairbrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he? Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort. What's Trevor up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Seide's past that she would desperately want to hide. Yes, of course. If Drabba and Dr. Seide are working together now, then if Drabba were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly. You're so scary, reading my mind all the time. Scary! The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I went to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead? I started big with the London news, but unsurprisingly they didn't want to know either. In the end though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners had wrapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? That particular journalist found me in my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. And from the description, he drew this illustration. Precisely, that's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. Huh? Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate then? Well...
Hold it!
That young woman being Madame Tuspels, of course. Precisely, I must say I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article and comme ça, found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put 5 pounds in front of me. So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made, and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. Ah, oui. I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas? Did you? I can't say I remember. Oh, was it something important? What was it, madame? His camera. Wait, that was his camera? Ah. Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir? To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
Oh, I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is part of the special exhibit in my house of horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is the Tesper's way. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drabber took with him to Lowgate Cemetery on the night in question. Yes, interesting.